because we're in this whole new generation of that. And with that too is not only are we building our youth leadership, those 7 people. We had, when Jaden came in, we had a lot more people listed as student leaders on our website. And he's like, you know what? No, because a lot of the kids just weren't actively doing work with them, and so he made it leaner and stronger. And yeah, so 7, it doesn't sound like a lot, but these people, they're putting, hours and hours and hours every week doing their work. And so he's done a great job with that. But like Grace said with her survey for the state of education in Oregon, that when the focus groups and the questions and all of that was youth to youth and the power of that. And that's what we have with our leadership with the kids, and I call them kids, they're younger than my children. And so there's so much power in that when you have that youth leadership. And so I want to speak just really quickly, this I promise is my last topic on here, is that making impact at the local level. So we have all these new schools who come, and one school will start a gay straight alliance, and another starting a group where they go in and talk to the superintendent. Iowa is super big on local control. I mean, like anything to do state mandate, that's like they're allergic to it. But if we can change the lives of those kids in that school, it's hard to quantify for sure, but we're making a difference on that. So anyway, that's my thing. Thank you.
I'm going to give Dana Muniz, because she hasn't spoken at all to this meeting, the final vote, and then I can feel you all need a break, so this is going to be the end of this session, but there's going to be a lot more to talk about.
Thanks, Dana. Thank you for being here. I have a question to go back to the recruitment and equity about retention, right? And I know that student voice groups, there's transients, because youth move on to do other awesome things, but how do you make a space inclusive, right? It's not just about bringing underrepresented students in, but how do you make it inclusive? So what kind of work are you doing, or have you seen other models that work so that you can have true partnership?
I mean, something that I've even been thinking about a lot in regards to this conference, and what I've heard a lot is referring to representatives, co-directors, founders as kids. And if we're having a genuine conversation on equity, calling these directors, these representatives, kids, you're automatically, and I'm not saying it's intentional, I'm not saying it's with malice, but you're diminishing the impact that these incredible people have. And if you're trying to have authentic youth-adult partnerships, I think we really need to have a conversation on the way that we address each other. And like I said, I don't think it's necessarily done with malice, but the impact that it has for these representatives and for myself in my own experiences is it really diminishes the amount of work that we put in. Because I mean, I know in my own experience, like I sacrificed lunch money to even get transportation to go to these meetings, and I just, yeah, and then to hear being referred to as a kid when trying to represent a marginalized voice, it's frustrating, it is. And I'm not saying that to call anyone out, but I think it's just a fresh reminder, so.
And just, I love your question because it gets me thinking, you're saying it's not just bringing them in, how can we make the spaces more inclusive in general? So one of the things we're trying to do with this concept of an equity fellowship is invite students in to co-design what that looks like, because I don't know, actually, and they do. So tapping into the expertise of those kids. I said that for the first time this whole conference because you put it in my head. You know what I meant. I swear I haven't used that word.
And also just like allowing the fellows and allowing all our members time to just listen. So like when they first come on and creating an inclusive space, it's not about like, hey, what are you bringing to the table? What do you have to offer? What are your thoughts on this? It's like, welcome. Just like, listen, this is what we do, and we're glad you're here. Like, allowing them a few months of that we have found really changes the results later on.
In Oregon Student Voice, one just one thing that we have done within our Thrive initiative has been professional development series where students and sometimes community partners come in and present on certain topics and kind of allow students to have the conversation and make sure that like our mindset is focused on individuals who have traditionally been the most marginalized. So for example, we've had professional development sessions on disability rights within the education movement, on equity-centered language, things like that. Just keeping it at the forefront of all of the education that we're doing internally has been something that Oregon Student Voice has done. Okay. Please help join me in thanking this wonderful group. So we are going to take a break because you all need a little coffee and you need to stretch. So let me just tell you what's going to happen. We're going to take a 10-minute break and we're going to come back here and we're going to have open space. If you're feeling like, my goodness, my question didn't get asked and I want to keep talking about this, add yourself to the open space. And we can have a table about that and keep talking about it. But for the folks who are going to have open space conversations, come to the front here in about 10 minutes. One of the tables for Shirley will be how are we going to have a conference next year and who's willing to come to my table to talk with us about what that might look like, where, who, whatever. What's that? Will you come? That's fantastic. So just planning-wise then, 10:30 open space, we'll still allot the same amount of time for open space. We're going to shrink role-alike time because mainly the role-alike groups are going to decide who's going to, in a final panel, just share reflections on what your experience was like here. And we're going to kind of have a cluster of sharing around that. And then we're going to be heading home. I'm not sure where Jamar is, but he's going to be leaving shortly, so hopefully we'll be able to say goodbye to him before he does. So go have some coffee, and there are even donuts out there. Thank you, whoever brought some Dunkin' Donuts.